Hi, welcome to the book club. Whoop whoop. We're actually doing book club on time this month.
Not a month late.
Not a month late. We're actually doing it in the month that it was. And the book this month is The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. So very exciting.
I have a copy. I left it in the bedroom.
I couldn't find my copy for the longest time. I kept looking for it. It was like in the fantasy section of my shelf. I don't know why. I was like, that's not where it goes. So who knows? But yeah, hi. How's everybody doing today?
Doing all right.
Yeah, can't complain much.
How do we normally start discussing our
share our
history with the book? Yes, exactly. I mean, this one's a little bit of a classic. Mars and I were just discussing that backstage. So obviously, heard about it. I knew there was a movie of it. Never read it. Never read it in school. Never seen the movie. I've been wanting to read it, though, for quite a while. I think when I started the book club, there were several of these kind of classic school books that I thought would be cool to include. So, yeah. And then I bought this copy, I don't know, a couple years ago, saw it and grabbed it because I knew it was on my list to read.
Does yours have the movie cover on it? Are those
no, it's not the movie. It's just random Bad Boys.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat where I never read it in school. I knew there was a movie, but I've never seen it. It's just kind of been on my radar. And then I picked up this copy from a little free library a while ago. This is the Platinum Edition. I don't know who published this. Speak by the Penguin Group, sure. But it's got like extra material in the back, an excerpt from one of her other books, that sort of thing, and it's got a really fancy shiny cover. But yeah.
I read it in school. This is we have a book club where I am the rereader.
Oh.
But I actually read it in middle school, and The Outsiders is like when the discussion of how of like YA and handling mature topics and stuff, The Outsiders is one of my examples that I consistently use as a YA has always handled dark and mature themes, and that there is a way to do it that is digestible for teenagers. Because I read this book when I was like 11. And I will say that apparently part of me had permanently blocked out part of the book, though, because like I knew somebody died. I just could not remember who or why or how.
Good moment for a spoiler thinner. Thank you.
Yeah, I knew that, and then as I'm reading it and stuff, I'm like sitting there and I'm so mildly stressed because I'm like, I know one of you fuckers is dying.
Mm-hmm.
And then it got to this one part, and after it got to that part, the death scene suddenly came back to me, and I was like, oh, this is why young Sam said, fuck this book. And,
yeah.
But it is a good book. So I enjoyed rereading it.
I found it a very fast read and a very digestible read. I don't know why I was intimidated to read it, just because I think it had that like school book tag to it.
Yeah.
But I thought, oh, it's going to be, it's a school book. But I don't know. I found it really digestible.
Yeah, I sat down to like get started on it, and then a couple of hours later I was like, wait, I finished it?
Yeah. So it is really not that long, and the prose is very straightforward, but it still has a lot of character voice to it. So
it has like, I feel like this way about a lot of books written by teenagers. Like Aragon has the same vibe to me, and Amelia Atwater Rhodes' early books have the same vibe where, like, it's well written, but you can tell it was written by someone who's very early on in their writing career. Like,
I did not know that Essie Hinton was a woman. Like a teen when she wrote this. I thought this was written by like a man. I don't know. But I was like, what?
In the one I wrote, or not wrote, in the one I read, the interview I read, because the copy of the book I have has a short interview at the end, or at the back of it.
Mm-hmm.
And one, like Mara says, she was 15 when she wrote the book. And also, like, it's asked, well, why do you go by Essie Hinton? And she was like, well, my publisher thought that nobody would think a girl could write something like this.
Yeah, I had no idea. I guess maybe I just assumed like a lot of the like classics and school books are written by men. So shame on me.
no, but I get it.
Yeah.
So also I knew it was a book about bad boys. So like the extent of what I knew about the book.
Also, apparently, the reason she wrote the book was because she actually, like on her way home from the movies, she witnessed a greaser being jumped, and it pissed her off so bad she went home and just started writing to like vent it out. And she was friends with a lot of greasers and stuff, and so that was her motivation for the book. When asked if any of the characters are modeled after her friends, she's like, my friends are convinced they are, but they're not.
Plot and pacing. I didn't want writing style. Well, it kind of talked about everything, but yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I thought the plot was very straightforward. I thought the pace was it kept going. Since I had no idea what the plot was going to be, there was obviously the point where they're like hiding out in the church. Where I'm like, is this the book now? Is it going to be like them on the run? Like,
what are we doing?
But then I kept thinking that couldn't be it because I already knew the movie poster and like all the characters. So I was like, they wouldn't just then leave all those characters that were introduced. So I just wasn't sure where it was going to go from there. But yeah.
I remember there was a rumble. I'm like, they have to get back.
Yeah.
There were definitely points where I was like, oh, based on like this event, I can tell what sort of thing is going to happen next, but I couldn't guess any specifics of where it was going. But then when I got to the end, I'm like, okay, no, this progression actually makes a lot of sense. I can see how he made it from like A to B to C.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the plot really took me off guard. Because I wasn't expecting like how it kind of, I mean, what do we call that? The inciting incident, sort of this murder of this boy. What was his name? Bob or something?
Yeah, Robert something Bob.
Yeah, that really took me off guard. I was like, what? The two like young kids in the gang. I guess we can call it a gang. It is a gang, isn't it?
Yeah, a gang. Yeah.
Are the ones who like murdered somebody. I was like, oh god.
Yeah, going into this, I was like, okay, I know that there are two gangs, two groups of people, and it says that something big happens. So either Ponyboy and his friends are going to kill someone, or one of them is going to get killed. And I had no idea. Like, it really could have gone either way.
Oh, see, I didn't even read the summary or the back cover. I had no idea like what was going on. Oh.
Yeah, so I both listened to an audiobook and had the paperback because I had laundry I needed to do, but I also because my paperback the paperback I got from the library had that interview. And the audiobook that I listened to at the beginning of it has a thing from her. And so remember, I hadn't read this book in like 23 years. And then I hear her saying that she wrote this book because at the time she was a teenager, she didn't feel like there were a lot of books out there that really reflected teenage emotions and what it meant to be a teenager and everything. And then I'm reading this book and I'm like, this was not my adolescence. But like on a
What it means
level,
to be a teenager. You get bullied and then you stab the person to death.
but then like by the end, and I kind of like I read her interview at the end of the book, and I'm like, actually, much less violence for my high school. But I'm like, yeah, no, this is kind of like a little bit how teenage years were. Like my high school wasn't as cliquish as other schools and stuff my friends went to, but you definitely like had groups of people who didn't get along and who judged each other just because they were not in the same friend group and stuff. And I had a lot of rumors that went around about me just because of how like I was as a person. So I'm like, you know what, S.E. Hinton, I can see what you mean. You definitely lived in a more violent area than I, though.
Yeah. Definitely also probably a sign of the times. I don't know, the 60s seemed like a pretty turbulent time for teenagers.
Yeah. Even that, though, like, there are still kids going through Johnny's situation, and there's still, oh my God, the boys, as y'all know, siblings, I meant the brothers. As
The
you
brothers,
know,
yeah.
siblings is where they get me. And this is the big spoiler, my dyslexia, I could not remember if it was, because I was like certain it was Dolly or Derry who died. And they're named, and I'm like, oh God, is it gonna be the brother? I'm like, no.
Yeah, I also had those two characters. I was like, she made those two names too similar.
Mm-hmm.
Derry and Dally. I was like, There's already like a big gang of guys. It's like, oh, come on. Like the weird names, yeah, Pony Boy, Soda Pop, those are easy to remember. But like, come on.
I want to know why Derry didn't have a weird name. His brothers
great
get weird
question.
names. Why is he just Daryl?
It's a great
They were
question.
trying to make him respectable, and then they gave up. They were like, fuck it.
Actually, the three brothers, it actually kind of reminded me a little bit of the dynamic of another book club book when we read The Raven Boys. The three brothers, and I kept thinking like, oh, was Maggie Stiefvater like inspired by this? Because the dynamic between the brothers, like, it reminded me of that.
Yeah, that very well could be. I also I related a little bit to the issues the brothers went like they're like interpersonal dynamics, because I am the oldest of three with a little bit of an age gap with my sisters and stuff, and I never went to college in part because I just like it. We just while my parents had the attitude of we'll figure it out, I didn't want to put that financial burden on my family, with my sisters still being in like, I don't even think they were still in middle school at the time. So I was like, I got you, Derry. And I'm like, I understand why you're being such a dick. So yeah, like, well, at first I was all like, I don't know if this is the universal teenage experience. By the end of the book, I was just like, you know what? I can see how teenagers could, like, maybe not all of it, but like there are definitely parts and stuff that are still very universal and still very relevant to teenagers of the modern era.
Yeah, the events might not be quite so universal, but the interactions and the dynamics definitely do feel that way.
Yeah. Some of the group dynamics and the friendship dynamics, the brother dynamics, you can kind of see these timeless themes.
It was a little bit weird that they kept referring to Johnny as the pet of the group. I didn't like that.
I got it, but I was like, oh, that's definitely a 60s like thing.
Yeah,
term.
Strange.
Yeah, but I kind of like that, you know, because a contemporary book that like it was about the 60s, written in the 60s, yeah. Like, I don't know, I kind of mess with that.
I like it, and I can dig it because I know that like because I'm familiar with a lot of 60s media and stuff, and like when they call him Johnny Cakes, and that's like really cute and stuff. But
Yeah.
I can see how like with a modern lens is like that's a little, especially with some of the like pet things that go on now.
Yeah, now it's a different situation. Do you guys
You're
have
right.
any other thoughts on the plot in general or the pacing?
It was well paced.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the plot.
I agree. It was really solid. I would just say solid all around. Okay. I have a lot of different
The plot was definitely
topics.
more character driven than story in this one.
I'm just like waiting for a transition.
Segue.
Yeah, we have quite an ensemble cast here, which I knew because I'd seen the movie poster of all like the famous actors in this movie. So I was like, oh, I looked up what actor played which character so that I could like in my head try to picture who was who.
Speaking of Johnny and the Raven Boys, he was it felt like he would have fit in the same slot as what is his name? The mechanic.
Mm-hmm. Now I'm also blanking on the name, but I know which one you mean.
I didn't read that book. I'm a bad
It's really
book
good.
remember.
You should read it. It's a good one.
One day, it is on my list.
So
It's so
voted on,
solid.
and then we were the only ones who read it.
Yeah, and it was like it's still to this day one of my like top favorite book club books. I think that The Diviners and Mistborn like are some of my top.
Just make it another month. You're reading again.
Well, for a shameless plug for my book club, we will be reading The Raven Boys this year. I want to say
Ooh.
August or September. So
Keep an eye out for that. Okay, so
Did
wait.
you guys have any favorite characters? Sorry, or as I just started talking when you were talking.
I'm trying to remember who everyone was. So Ponyboy and his brothers are Soda Pop and Derry.
yes,
Johnny's the youngest. Dally is
no,
the big bad guy, like the head honcho kind of dude. Who am I missing?
2-Bit
2-Bit?
and Steve.
and Steve. Steve is just like the random one.
Steve is Soda Pop's friend, right?
Yeah, Steve is Soda Pop's
Okay.
other half,
All right.
and that's
And then the girl was Cherry, the Soch girl. There was another one, but I don't remember her name.
she was unimportant. She did not come back.
She was like a blink and you miss it. And like the guy who died, I said was Bob, but
and
there was
Randy is the other important.
Randy. I was gonna say there was another named Soch boy, but I couldn't remember his name. Randy. Yep.
Randy was such a 60s name. I cannot forget it.
Yeah.
There's also Tim Shepard, who had his own gang,
Yeah.
who had,
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
had a frenemies relationship with Dally. And then there are the Hoods, who only the two brothers were named, but I cannot remember their names. The older brother and then the brother that was Ponyboy's age, which Ponyboy is actually the youngest, but aside from Ponyboy, Johnny is the youngest.
But I got the feeling that Johnny was also just like a small guy. Is that like?
It's supposed to be that he and Ponyboy are about the same size.
Yeah, that
Johnny is
was the
smaller.
vibe I got. That he was just like the
'cause he's
unimposing
younger.
little guy.
No, so Ponyboy was 14, and
Yeah.
then Derry
No,
was 20, right? And then everyone else was kind of in the middle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Derry was 20. Yep.
Yeah, Derry
I
was
think-
20. Dally was, while Dally seemed a lot older, he was only 17.
Yeah, and I think not Pony, but Soda Pop was 16. No.
Mm-hmm.
So, because didn't at one point Johnny accuse, or one of them, was it Johnny or Dally, accused Ponyboy of being like 13? He's like, I'm 14.
He's like, I'm 14 as of 2 months ago.
I found that really funny.
Your old thing to say.
Yeah.
Damn. That's what we all do. It's like, don't you take away my 2 months, motherfucker. Now as adults, we're like, what year is it? When was I born? The little math
Literally.
sign up.
I work with mostly high schoolers, and they're all still like that. They're like, well, I'm turning 17 in 3 weeks. I'm like, good for you.
That's really cute.
I love it. And to be fair, at that age, those months do make a bigger difference than they do at our age.
Mm.
I don't know if I had a favorite character. I think I kind of had a little spot for everybody. Like I liked Dally. I thought was an interesting character.
2-Bit a lot. 2-Bit was really funny.
I think Ponyboy was probably my favorite, which it's very rare for the main character to be my favorite.
He has the coolest name. Come on.
And he had the best hair, apparently, before they cut it off. I like how it was not a point of contention until they cut it off, and then suddenly everybody's like, no, you had the best hair. And
Yeah.
I'm like, we don't know till it's gone.
Yeah. Yeah, it was cute how obsessed the boys were with their hair. It was really cute.
They gotta grease their hair back.
Yeah, they gotta grease the hair.
I was going to like wear a leather jacket for this stream, and I'm so sad it's so hot. I would die.
So wait, I was just gonna say way too hot for that.
But I was like, man, it's the outsiders, it's the greasers. This is my aesthetic.
Yeah, comb would have also been. I don't know if there's a comb emoji. That could have also been a good one, but I think the cigarette was a good choice.
Thank you. I couldn't remember much, but I was like, I remember cigarettes being important somehow. And then I read it and I was like, oh my god, this is like there's no other emoji that is better.
Yeah, they talk about it a lot, especially when they were hiding out in the church. They were like having some real nicotine withdrawals.
Yeah.
I was like, this is true. Oh my gosh, the conversation in the hospital with the one guy who was like, aren't you a bit young to smoke? Or he's like, you shouldn't smoke. And he's like, why?
Yeah.
Like, he's not offended or anything. Like, Ponyboy is just genuinely confused.
Yeah, like he didn't understand for what reason. Like, oh, is there some like?
Yeah, it speaks so much to like how when things are normalized, you know, because he's like, well, aren't you a little young to smoke? And he's like sitting there, he's like, why would he think that? Like everybody else I know, they started smoking before they were in the double digits.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah, I mean, in the 60s, I'm sure that was really normal.
Yeah, and then when Derry is like, oh, you're recovering, try not to smoke more than a pack today. And I'm like, a whole pack?
I know. I was like, yeah, not more than okay. Well, let's not try for a pack either, Pony. That's not a goal.
Yeah, definitely different times.
Yeah, that I would definitely sign of the times. Definitely. So
Also, weirdly enough, I feel the book had, I don't want to say positive marijuana representation because, you know, like, I don't know if teenagers should be smoking marijuana at all. But the fact that they, like, only smoked it for essentially anxiety reasons for most of them. Because it's like...
But wait, how did they refer to marijuana? They had a...
It was a weed.
Yeah, I was going to say they had a way of saying it that I was like, oh, I know what they're talking about, but okay.
Yeah, but they referred to, like, Soda Pop would use a weed just if he was, like, amped up and trying to calm down. And I'm like, so this is 60s slang and understanding for he was anxious and overwhelmed and he was using the weed to calm down. And I was like, oh, this is semi-responsible use for marijuana. I'm like, I could dig it. But again, though, I don't remember. I don't think. I think for the most part, the general rule for anything that alters your brain chemistry, bad until your early 20s. And even then, questionable. But, you know, by then you're an adult, you make your decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it definitely, I mean, substances was just part of their...
Yeah, that was just their day-to-day.
It was part of their bad boy lifestyle. So
Yeah, I feel like it also has to do with the fact that there really was no adult presence in their lives, so they kind of like took that on themselves. I feel like that's a common theme in a lot of books where like teenagers who don't have an adult presence in their life kind of step up and they're like, well, I guess that makes me an adult now because I'm the oldest one.
Yeah, this was really, really absent parents. I mean,
Well,
Johnny had parents, but they were not a part of his life at all.
we can't blame Ponyboy's parents.
And Pony Boy's parents
Yeah.
sadly were deceased.
They was dead.
S-
Two Bit's mom was there. She just apparently was very bad at discipline.
yeah. Yeah.
But she at least tried, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. I was really shocked about like when Johnny talked about his like family situation. I was like, what the heck? Like these people don't care at all about their kid? Like he's like, oh, I could just sleep here all night. Nobody's gonna notice. Like what?
The Derry's open door policy kind of reminded me of my aunts and uncles when my cousin was growing up. Because my cousin, for all intents and purposes, was a modern greaser. And so he had a lot of friends who did not come from the best of homes. And so it was nothing to go over to my aunt's house. And there was like just random teenagers I had never met before, and everybody acted like I knew these people, like oh well, you know, and they all had like very similar names and stuff, right? Like, and I don't want to name any on stream, but it was very, very much the same vibe and stuff of, oh well, you know this one, and I'm like, do I? But do I? It's like, oh, you remember so and so, and I'm like, don't think I do. But so, yeah, it was very like sometimes. Hold on, what's that? There's a phrase that every child deserves parents, but not every parent deserves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got that vibe. Yeah. Which
This was definitely like. Sorry, like Mars was saying, there are a lot of YA books and stuff where the adults are removed and middle grade where the adults are removed because that's how, like, kids can't go, for the most part, children can't go on their grand adventures and stuff with most adult guardians. Again, Mars, the Raven Boys being a distinct shift.
yeah, but at least there's parents in the Raven Boys.
Well,
at least Blue's parents.
No, that's what I was saying. Blue's parental figures were very like helpful and stuff. I was teasing Mars about not reading The Raven Boys when it's such a good example of certain things.
I know, it was such a good book.
But in The Outsiders, it was very much, this is how parents are absent in real life. And this is what like actual teenagers have to deal with when they are gone. Like no like just kind of hand wavy reasons they're not there, no like light tone about it. It's just like, no, these ones are dead. They're not only are these parents dead, but like these boys have to be careful about what they do and stuff, or they will be separated, right? And that is like, that's one of the biggest fears for children in homes like a lot of kids don't report like their parents and stuff, not because they actually want to stay with their parents, but because they're so scared of being separated in the foster system.
Yeah.
Because they are essentially all they have, and like older siblings are like, I am responsible for my younger siblings, and like I can't let them be separated and stuff. So it's a very heavy parentification, which is also part of why I'm like, Derry, you shouldn't let your brother go to the Rumble anyway. Like, should you imagine showing up to court and something and he's got a black eye and they're like, well, how did that happen?
Yeah, but Derry did also hit his brother in the book. So he wasn't perfect as an older brother.
They say that was the first time that ever happened, which is why Ponyboy reacted the way.
Yeah, but still, I don't know. Like, even if it's the first time,
I'm not defending it. I'm definitely not defending it. But
no, I'm not defending it. I also
the characters like this, like I can see how he was driven to like these sort of extremes.
To be fair,
for sure.
I have my siblings.
Yeah, that's the thing.
can't say
They
nothing.
are
They're my-
brothers. They're siblings. It's
Yeah,
not
my
his.
siblings are not my children.
Exactly.
I definitely was more aggressive and violent with my siblings than I have ever been with my children. So,
But it is a little bit of a shift, like when one is, yeah, still technically a child and one isn't. But again, we're talking also about a different time period, and we're also talking about the social class here as well,
Yeah,
because
like him hitting Ponyboy was not a good thing, but that it also the book makes it very clear that that was the first time it ever happened,
Yeah.
and how shitty Derry felt about it, and how that's never gonna happen again. Like Ponyboy later in the book, even when they start yelling and they start fighting and stuff, Derry doesn't do it. So I don't even remember what they were fighting. Oh, because Ponyboy scared him
Mm-hmm.
because he was out late, and Derry was afraid that they would take him away.
I mean, I do have other banners. Do we want to talk about the violence aspect of this book? Because when I was looking up, like, why was this controversial? Because I heard it was like violence. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. I went into this feeling like it was going to be like over the top and gratuitous because I've heard that it's such a violent book, and it is, but it also feels realistic.
Yeah.
Like, obviously I didn't grow up in this kind of environment, but like I grew up poor. I now live in a city environment. Those are two like aspects of life that do breed violence more than a lot of other things. And so like I've seen these sort of things play out in real life, and it isn't great, but I like how realistic it was with the depictions of what happened.
Yeah, it's the I don't feel like the descriptions of the violence and everything, I don't think they were gratuitous. I felt like the descriptions were they were just enough to get the point across.
Yep.
I even felt like in some areas it was sanitized a little bit for the audience, which is perfectly fine for this target audience. Especially like the murder of Bob, right? Like we get that Johnny wants a bath, but it doesn't like discuss the part of the reason that he's probably willing to risk freezing for that bath is because he's probably covered in blood. Like
Yeah.
because he killed
Also
him
because
there's no way to do that without getting bloody.
Ponyboy's perspective, that Ponyboy was being like drowned, held under the water.
Yeah, but like even he like laid in his lap. So it's knowing how like fatal stab wounds were, unless he got him like right at the rib.
Well, that's the thing is we don't know because Ponyboy wasn't there to tell us. Because, so we're just like found out afterwards. He's like, oh, I got him. And we're like, what?
No, but my point was, unless he punctured his rib, in which case it would have taken him longer to die. Like there should be blood on Johnny.
Oh, definitely. There would have been blood. I mean,
yeah, there would have been blood on Johnny and stuff. And Ponyboy like laid in Johnny's lap on the train and stuff. And so I'm just saying, like at some point, if they wanted to be gratuitous or anything, Ponyboy could have picked up on the blood and stuff, but he didn't. And I'm like, that's perfectly fine because later it's just like, oh, like Johnny wanted soap and stuff to wash off. And it's like, that's probably part of it.
no, they could have definitely gone into detail about the gore.
Yeah, which is, I was just saying, so I thought.
Because for him to die that fast, like of a stab wound, it would have had to been something. Because normally, like true crime I watch, usually people can get stabbed several times before actually being dead.
Yeah,
dead.
the whole point of like, well, the whole point. Part of the thing with internal bleeding is that it is a slow, painful death. Mm-hmm. It is not quick. So in order for it to be a quick death, it's more likely like a cartilage or and that's the only way you're going to bleed out very quickly. So So yeah, I was just saying I felt that like it was very well done for the target audience and to keep the gravity of the situation.
I agree. I think maybe I almost expected it to be like more violent, like maybe just because I'm used to reading like modern books that really. So like in comparison, I was like, oh, okay. Just because I heard kind of the reputation about the book.
Yeah.
So I went in thinking something, but it's like, okay, it is also still for kids, and it is.
I thought drugs were going to be a bigger part, even though I've read this book before, because I remember like when I was growing up and stuff, we had to sign a permission slip that said that this book was violent, discussed drugs, smoking, and sex. And I was like, so I went in, I was like, I thought that like the drug aspect was going to be bigger. And I'm like, no, they just smoke a weed every now and then. The cigarettes are the big thing.
Yeah.
So also, sex, I would argue, wasn't necessarily talked about. It could very easily go over the head. That's like when they were talking about Soda Pop's girlfriend moving to Florida. I had to like stop, reread it a second, and be like, is it saying what I think? Did he knock a girl up?
That's what I was like. I'm like, wait, is this what's happening? It was very like surface level discussion of it.
But there was another reference to sex when they went to meet up with Dally. That they were at that thing. He was like in a room.
I thought Dally was good because Ponyboy was like, "Oh God, Dally's being a hoe," and Dally's like, "I was trying to take a nap."
He was like, I was not doing that in the room." It was like, oh, okay.
Also, turned out the baby wasn't even Soda Pop's, but he still wanted to take responsibility for it, and her parents were like, "We can't have her marrying a shitty boy like that." I'm like, how dare you?
Yeah, like that's like so like really vague references to sex, like it's just like alluding to it. It's not.
I like that the situation was added, but that it was like added in a way of if you know, you know, and if you don't know, bless your heart, you don't need to.
Yeah, it did feel like that. I definitely feel like that could definitely go over some kids who have to read this in school's heads. Depending on the innocence level.
Yeah, I kind of wish that I had read this in school. Because I feel like I loved reading books in school. I know a lot of people are like, oh, I hate that. But I always had a great time with discussions, which is part of why I love the book club. And I'm so curious as to what I would have thought if I had read this 10 years ago.
Some of middle school Sam's thoughts were that I really enjoyed all of the characters and I liked their dynamics. I liked Dally more when I was younger. As an adult, I'm just kind of like, meh. But when I was a teenager, I thought it was really cool. Well, preteen. I thought it was cool. And then I was greatly upset by Johnny and Dally's death. I was so sad, so upset. I grew up around a lot of smokers, so the cigarettes thing was just my mind went to, do y'all understand how much money you are spending on cigarettes? Do you know you could go to college with that money? I think that is why I have never smoked in my life, was because my grandmother and my dad and my aunt growing up, they all told me don't start smoking because it's so fucking expensive. And my dad would tell me the things he could buy that would like equate to how much he spends on cigarettes. And I was like, damn. But that's also part of why I know how hard it is to quit smoking, like the nicotine addiction. My father tried to quit smoking like 3 times throughout my adolescence, and most of the people in the house asked him to start smoking again because he was just such a fucking dick when he wasn't. Not good. Do not recommend. If somebody is trying to quit smoking, always support them. But, you know, at the time, it was just like, he was an ass.
Yeah. My dad was a smoker before I was born, and then he worked at a hospital in the 90s, and he was actually on his smoke break when he got a notification on his pager that he was like wanted the front desk. So he went to the front desk and they were like, hey, your wife just went into labor. And he's like, all right, that's my last cigarette ever. And he never smoked again.
My
Oh, sorry,
grandfather
didn't mean
did
to clip that.
when my mother told him she was pregnant with me. They tell me he has never touched a cigarette since, which is also why he's not like very empathetic to people who find it harder to quit smoking because he just stopped.
Mm-hmm.
My father and my grandmother have both quit smoking. I think my aunt has too. I think all the smokers in my family have quit smoking by this point in my life. So, but yeah, so as like 10 or 11 when I'm reading this and I'm reading about like all their financial issues and stuff, and I'm like, just don't smoke, boys. You will save so much money. So
Yeah, I don't know. I just really thought like at this time period, especially in their social class and environment they were in, it's like, yeah, smoking was just what it was. It's just what they did.
Yeah, and they had no idea about like the health effects and stuff that it led to yet.
No. So, I mean, I think it was realistic. I prefer if we're going to read something, YA, then that has a realism factor. That's why it's good to have books like that have like violence and stuff like it in, because it's real.
It's definitely like, I completely agree, and that's one of the like reasons that I use even as my memory of the book itself grew vaguer and vaguer over time, because apparently I chose to block out Dally's death the way that it happened. But I still uphold it and use it like wholeheartedly, and especially after the reread, as one of the examples of why it is important in YA to handle those darker, more mature topics, because teenagers deal with them and we need representation of them. And so like when people discuss how YA has become more adult, nobody's saying that, well, the group I'm part of we're not saying that like, YA take out all the violence and all the sex and all the drugs and stuff. No, just don't do it the same way you do it in adult novels. They're not interchangeable. It's different.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think sometimes books marketed for kids get a little bit too sanitized, message of the week.
Mm-hmm. And I like that while violence is a normalized part of the book and of everything, like they're doing somersaults and they're, like happy and stuff on the way to the Rumble, because like the discussion makes it clear to the readers that, oh, it's just going to be a bunch of boys beating each other up. Like nobody's going to hurt her.
And they have different
but
interests and stuff outside as well.
Yeah. On the way there, Ponyboy's like asking everybody, he's like, why do you like fighting? Why do you like fighting? And he's like, I actually don't like fight. Like he himself comes to the realization that he only fights for self-defense. He doesn't actually enjoy fighting. And he doesn't think that anybody's reasons are good, that like that their reasons are basically shit. But, he doesn't tell them that. There's even like in the paperback, there's a part in the paragraph where it's in parentheses, and it felt like Ponyboy's having like these thoughts and stuff, and all hyped about the Rumble, and then he gets really upset, and then he goes back to thoughts about the Rumble. And I wish I remember what that part said, but it very much gave the feel of how he thinks the Rumble is stupid and they should not actually be doing this. Like that Randy had the right idea. But that like if Randy had died, then Bob might have just been more angry and violent, similar to like Dally.
Yeah, I don't know. I really like Dally as a character. Dally's death really got me. So. Yeah.
The part I distinctly, like I said, after Johnny got in the hospital, that was the point when I remembered that Dally was going to go out and a blaze of glory, essentially. And I was like, oh, I fucking hated that part. And I still do. It's so well led up to, though. Especially when Ponyboy's like, he knows the gun is empty, but he's like, but the cops don't know the gun.
That line, I was like, damn. Okay, I see where we're going now.
Yeah. It was really well laid out.
And then he gets upset because of how he knows that Johnny is going to be written that he died a hero, but that Dally is going to be written that he died a good for nothing hoodlum or a good for nothing greaser, despite the fact that Dally also, like, he went in to save Johnny and like he got hurt too, and he's like the only reason Johnny didn't just die in the fire. And it's like,
that's why I think why I like Dally as a character so much, because he's kind of like the poster boy of the, big screw up. But really, he's so helpful and he is a good person, but he just, kind of was dealt this hand in life just of his social class and situation that
he had to harden himself to survive.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that makes him an interesting character.
And despite the fact that he was all like, don't go help those kids, he helped. He's very much one of those people who he's like, you help those you care about, and that's it. And so he like he would not go into a fire to save children, but he would go into the fire to save his friends.
Yeah.
And so one of my favorite parts between him and Ponyboy is when he's like, oh my gosh, I'm glad I didn't accidentally kill you when I was trying to put that fire out. And Ponyboy's like, you know what? I'm kind of happy he's glad he didn't kill me. And I'm like, teenagers. But
I feel like I had something else to say, but I can't remember.
Sorry. Oh, hi, Nina. I've been on the private chat, so I didn't even see you, Nina.
Oh, yeah, Nina said hello at the very beginning, and I never acknowledged it.
It's okay. She didn't read the book. It's fine.
She's here for vibes. That's good.
Yeah, as I've been sitting here, I realized that my book has a number on it, so it's probably also a part of a school.
Is that 81 or 18?
I think it's 18, but I mean, it could go either way.
Probably 18, because it's probably numbered for one of the students, and they don't have 81 students in one class, presumably.
Even if they did, there's no way they would have 81 copies. They would have to share. I know my school did not have that many copies of the books that they gave out.
Yeah. I mean, for a school book, this is in really good condition. The kid probably didn't read the book.
In middle school, we had classroom copies. So each classroom or the English rooms had 25 or 30 copies, and then you were assigned one, and you had to take care of that copy.
Yeah, we had one specific storage room that had floor-to-ceiling shelves that every copy of every book for English class was kept in. And I remember one time, I think it was sophomore year, my teacher asked me to come with her because she didn't have time before class to grab the books. So we had one of those wheeling library carts, and we went and collected the copies for our classroom. We had to sign a paper that showed which ones we took out. I thought that was so cool, and I'm like, well, yeah, now it's just a normal organization system. It makes sense.
Yeah.
That was how my middle school did it. In high school, I don't know, I was in the AP English classes, and we had to buy the books, and I hated so many of those.
That actually is a good segue, because I did have this Modern Classic School Books banner that I prepped.
The grapes of wrath can burn. Anyway, So
would we consider this a modern classic? Because I think I would.
Yeah.
I do.
But at what point does a modern classic just become a classic? That's my follow-up question.
I think it will forever be a modern classic in the modern era term, because the modern era is a specific set of years, and then there's postmodern and everything. But in terms of modern, as in like compared to today, I feel like we might be past that because it's like
not contemporary anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's contemporary of its time.
I am unsure when contemporary becomes historical.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Like, how many years does something have to be sort of seen as a, piece of literature before it's kind of just cemented? Because so many like real classics did not get their flowers at the time and then later became a big thing. So it's like a very nuanced situation, I feel like.
I feel like
after a decade.
My parents were born in the 60s, and I know I asked my mom if she read this, and my mom remembers reading this when she was a teenager. And I feel like if my mom remembers reading it, I would class that as just like purely classic at that point.
Okay. I don't know. To me, that still feels modern. I don't know why.
I don't know. My mom is a lot older. Like, she was not young when I was born, so.
Well, way to throw your mom under the bus. I don't know, because I was also considering like the public domain, like, and that's like 100-year limit. So I'm like, is that where we call, But again, when I had looked it up, it said post-war. So I don't know. I definitely would consider it a modern classic. But then, like, what about like, things from the last 10, 20 years?
From the thing I'm reading, what is considered contemporary is still quite flexible, depending on who you talk to. Like, in some cases, like novels that take place in the 1970s and 80s are still like considered contemporary if the themes and the issues focused on are still modern issues. So very much, despite it taking place in the 60s, this book can still feel very contemporary, even though it's not placed in our thing. I would consider it a modern classic essentially until like it stops being common in the like zeitgeist. Really, because like your mom read it in school, but I also read it in school. But my children are not reading it in school.
That's what I'm wondering. What are people reading now? Because when we read like Fault in Our Stars, who said that they had read that in school? I was like, what?
Yeah, they read they've read The One and Only Ivan, The Fault in Our Stars.
That's such a good book.
Let me ask my high school age coworkers what books they're reading in school. I'll get back to you.
I'll be right back. I got a list that may help us.
Yeah, I just feel like because now the books coming out, I feel like also schools are trying to be better with the books they include, being more diverse, having things that have different themes and kind of going away from some of the dustier classics. So, but I don't know because I'm not in school, so like, you really need to know teens who are in it to know what's going on, or teachers also.
I don't know, now I'm really curious, but I feel like my coworkers are going to make fun of me if I ask what books they're reading in school, because they already make fun of me for being old.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah, the other day they started calling me great grandma. Not just grandma. Great grandma. I'm like,
grandma, you're teenagers? Okay.
Yeah, that is a bit extreme, but kids gonna be kids.
Since I was already in my room. This is like the exact version. I'm covering my library thing. The exact version that I read in middle school. Like this cover and everything. So this was so fucking nostalgic while I was reading it. Look at the pages yellowed with age. But no, the list. So this is a list of Books A Million does a summer reading challenge every summer. Kids read 4 books off the list. They bring in their little like log book, and they get a free tote bag for whatever this year's Dogman. And so the like list here is like Dogman series, Cat Kid Comics, The Adventure of Captain Underpants, Super Diaper Baby, George and Harold's Epic Comics. We will get to non-comic things. It's just in alphabetical order. The Robot series, the Dragon series by Dave Pilkey, which my son was like, which Dragon series? And I'm like, I guess it's just called Dragon series. Alone. And okay, so there's Alone, and then there's Anne of Green Gables is still a thing that they
Okay, so there's that's one that we would consider classic, no?
Like a lot of these books are like either scholastic books or they are books that are in circulation in schools and that they know are popular with kids. It's part of why they're on the summer reading program. Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret.
Oh,
but the title.
Can we revisit that for the book club? Because I remember that book was so important to me when I was a kid.
I think.
When was that published, though? That's not that old, right? It's from the 70s or 80s, no?
That's for y'all to Google while I continue reading. Because of Winn-Dixie.
Oh, I read that in school, actually, because of Winn-Dixie, but I think it was actually quite new at the time. My teacher,
The BFG.
Mm-hmm.
That's
1970 was Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. But apparently a movie came out in 2023.
I know. I did hear that there had been a newer movie adaptation of it.
Interesting.
Bone Out from Boneville. Bud Not Buddy, which I had never.
Oh, I read that. I read that in school as well.
I've heard
one of my kids picked.
It's a Newbery one.
Yeah, though I had never seen that one, he picked that one, and I looked at the cover, and I was like, oh, that looks like somebody at my age group would have read that in school. So thank you for.
It's like a boy with a trumpet on the cover. What was the cover of Bud Not Buddy?
Yeah, I think so. Bunnicula.
Bunnicula. I read that. But not in school, just as an adult for fun. Call of the Wild I read in school.
I want to reread The Call of the Wild so bad. My boyfriend and I were having a discussion yesterday because I read this, and then immediately after reading this, I read Lord of the Flies for the first time. And so we were talking about books that we either read in school or like other kids read in school, but we never got to, and like ones that we wanted to check out. And I was like, damn, I don't know why I'm thinking of Call of the Wild right now, but I really want to read Call of the Wild.
I mean, it fits that.
Mm-hmm.
Cat Wad. I have no idea what that is. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Charlotte's Web. The City of Ember. Daughter of the Deep. Dogtown. Fabled Haven. Four Eyes. Fresh Start. Frindle. The Girl Who Drank the Moon.
Mm-hmm.
Which I read recently for something. I thought it was for this.
It might have been the year of favorites.
Maybe.
I think it's also a Newbery book, though, isn't it?
Oh,
it was for the Newbery readathon. Hatchet, which I
love
read.
Hatchet.
Hatchet's a good one. The Hobbit. Holes. A Horse Named Sky, which Holes is another one that I like. We read Holes. We watched Holes. We compared the movie and the. I confused my daughter because she was considering reading Holes, and then I was like ARMP activity. What is that? You smell dog as me. And she's like, what is that? And I'm like, that's part of the song from Holes.
Holes is a good book.
Inkheart is on there.
Inkheart, we know her. We love her.
We do. Invisible at Emmy. Ivy and Bean series. James and the Giant Peach, another one we read and discussed in my schools. Kiki's Delivery Service. I was surprised to see that one on there. Kingdom Keepers, Disney After Dark. Hold on, what? I didn't fully read this list before, and so Kingdom Keepers, Disney After Dark is on there. The Land of Stories, The Wishing Spell, which it's wild for me to see that on there because this is going to be mildly off topic, but Chris Colfer, the author of The Land of Stories, he was on Glee.
Mm-hmm.
And I really loved him on Glee, and he used his stardom to get connections to start publishing, because that was his real dream, to be a writer. And I'm like, not generally the path most authors take, but I respect it. And so his grandmother sounds like my mom, in that she was basically like, oh, you want to be he like shows her a story when he's a kid, and she's like, you got to write better than this to be an author. But so he released The Land of Stories, and then it was one of the first book series I put my kids to bed with. And so, and like we read them as they came out. And so to see the first book on a kid's reading list now, I'm like, fucking wild.
Yeah, I see his books everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
The Lemonade War, A Long Walk to Water, Love That Dog, Making Friends, Matilda, Miles Morales, Shockwaves, Mr. Wolf's Class, Not Enough, and Enough is spelled without the U. I don't know if that's a typo or not. New Dragon City, The New Girl, Old Yeller, because we're still here traumatizing children.
Oh yeah, that movie shouldn't be on there.
Yeah, I remember reading that in 6th grade, and we were not warned about what was happening, and everyone cried.
Yeah, I would cut that from the list.
The Phantom Toll Booth.
Oh, great book.
To be fair, it is up to the parents to preview the list for their children. If my children wanted to read Old Yeller, I would just be like, the dog dies. Just know that. Going in and you will be fine. Pippi Longstocking, QB1, Redwall, which is a childhood favorite of my best friend, apparently. The Rima Chronicles, Realm of the Blue Mist, Restart, The Secret Garden,
Secret Garden.
Stuart Little, Stunt Boy in the Meantime, Sunny Side Up, The Tale of Emily Winsnap, Timid, The Tryout, Twins, Unico Awakening, Unplugged, A Whale of the Wild, which I've never heard of, but sounds like a book from my childhood. Just like it would be a book. Where the Red Fern Grows.
I was thinking about that book when you guys talked about Old Yeller.
Where the Red Fern Grows, which I think my school owes me emotional damages for.
Yeah, that one I read in school.
Never read it. I don't know if I ever.
My class wasn't even supposed to read it. Our teacher got sick, and so we got divided up into other teachers' classes, right? And so I ended up in this same class for like a week doing my work. And while I was during their reading time, they read Where the Red Fern Grows. And that book emotionally traumatized me. To this day, I see that book and I become enraged. And I'm like, no, fuck that book.
Yeah.
But I also feel I must always add the disclaimer. It is actually a really, really good book. And that is part of the reason I hate it so. Then there's Wish, Witchlings, The Wizard of Oz, A Wolf Called Wander, The World According to Humphrey, and A Wrinkle in Time.
Okay, so there's got a couple oldies on there and some pretty modern stuff as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
A good mix.
This is an example of like what corporate America thinks the kiddos are reading right now. And I do know that some of that stuff, like I have heard my kids, like when they look at the list and they'll be like, oh, well, we read that in class and stuff. And every now and then they get really excited when I talk about like a book club book or not so much the year favorites, but mostly like genuinely the book club books or like our Newbery, especially during the Newbery season. or not season, what was it? Readathon? Yeah, during the Newbery Readathon, there were quite a few books where they were excited because they were like, "Oh, you're reading that? We read that," and all of that. So we actually have because Catherine Applegate did a book signing at our local Barnes and Noble, and so this is our family copy of The One and Only Family, which is
But
autographed.
Catherine Applegate is also who did Animorphs, right?
Her and her husband did Animorphs
Yeah.
together.
Yeah, I remembered that
I didn't realize.
being surprised when I learned that. Like, I was like, I love One and Only Ivan, and then I'm like, oh, she also did Animorphs? Cool.
Yeah, I told my husband, I was like, oh, hey, Catherine Applegate's coming to Books A Million. The kids really like The One and Only Ivan. Like, we should take them to a book signing because that would be really cool. They've never been to one. I just love going to book signings in general because, as you know, it's the horse that I like to I don't want to say I like to beat horses, but you guys know that
Yeah.
I love author interviews and listening to author interviews and book signings. There's always the Q&A, and I love the Q&As. And then my husband got really, really excited. And I'm like, I didn't know you like Catherine. I didn't know you knew anything about The One and Only Ivan. And he's like, she wrote Animorphs. And I'm like, oh, I understand your excitement now because my husband's a huge Animorphs fan.
Another book club pick. Anyone watching the replay, go check out our discussion of Animorphs.
Well, that's what kind of like brings me back to like, okay, we're talking modern classics, and all the books that we read are nostalgia books that were popular. So, I mean, you would think some of them fall into that category.
Oh, definitely.
For sure.
Yeah, like even like was it Nina who said she read John Green in school? She's like the youngest one, so that makes sense. But it feels like, okay, yeah, I can see that reading something like, I don't know, Looking for Alaska could be like, you know, a modern day kind of Outsiders, like, you know.
Looking for Alaska was a high school read for my peers. And like sometimes I would read because I was like one of two of my friends who were in advanced English. Everybody else was in regular English, and so they would read a lot of the school system picks. And sometimes I would like go to our library and get one so that I could read along with them. But then I kind of like heard some things about Looking for Alaska, and I was like, that sounds sad. Nope.
Yeah, that honestly, that's when I was like, when you suggested the cigarette emoji, I was like, did we use that for Fault in Our Stars or Looking for Alaska? Because those are both quite cigarette heavy books. So I was like, oh no, we didn't. For the readathon, we just used like a green emoji, and for the other one, I don't remember, a cloud. I was like, okay.
I threw out the horse for Pony Boy, but then like during the read, he was like talking about Mickey Mouse, Soda Pop's horse, and I was like, oh, could have also.
Yeah, I didn't expect there to be an actual horse mentioned in the
Well,
book.
that's the thing, is that they had like I mean, they definitely had their own personalities and hobbies outside. That like you said, Soda Pop was really into horses, at what it said, and Pony Boy himself was really into books and movies. Like, they just didn't have really the chance to explore their hobbies because of their social situation and class situation. So, but that was, I mean, that obviously falls in, I guess, to the themes of the book. You know, of kind of the book kind of ending it. Like now, that kind of seems like a cliche way, but it did wrap up kind of nicely about Pony Boy being like, okay, here's what I learned. This is the theme of, I'm going to use my real life experience to.
While I agree that has sort of now become perceived as a cliche, I think that the way it's executed still keeps it from being a cliche, just because like that's how he's been the whole book. like he's not suddenly reflective. This is just
it was cute. I really liked it. I thought it was nice.
I like how it was kind of meta, because in it, Pony Boy is literally like, I want to write about the things that I see that people don't really talk about. And I'm like, that's exactly what S.E. Hinton was doing with this book.
Yeah, it's like literally the end of the book is very like semi-autobiographical, because that's what she said at the beginning of the audiobook, that's what she said she did, was that she immediately went home and saw it. He took a little more time before he started writing it after.
Mhm.
Also, he didn't witness Johnny getting it. Either way, semantics.
But I mean, it is, like I said, it is still like a school book, so it kind of did feel like this lesson of his brother being like, yeah, you stick with school, you do your schoolwork, and then his teacher, saying, okay, you can write about this, and he was then so motivated to do it, and we knew already that he has like a love for stories, so it was a satisfying ending and wholesome ending.
Sorry, that reminds me that I absolutely, one of the like ongoing, I don't know if it would be a theme or a motif, but one of the like ongoing things, like you said, was that like these boys are dynamic and there's more to them than what you like see, and that they are very limited by their surroundings and stuff. And one of those things is that like Pony Boy, because he is the youngest and because the rest of them are like giving him this chance to succeed where he's strong, which is academia, he reads a lot and he knows a lot of book stuff and he's very like literate and stuff. But when he reads Gone with the Wind to Johnny, he like realizes that Johnny is a deeper reader than him, and that Johnny like is more analytical and picks up on some of the stuff that he himself misses. And he's like, I thought I was the academic one, but he's the deep one. And it like is a very small piece of the conversation that media sometimes shows, that like just because you're traditionally educated doesn't make you more intelligent than like other people.
Yeah, definitely.
I liked that part.
You definitely get this theme of the kids being, put into this label of greaser. It's not like it's not like a gang that they really choose to be in. They're labeled off of that based off of their class and where they live. So yeah, okay, they choose then to do the greased hair and participate, but it is like a survival for them. It's not like like when I was in high school, like, oh, let's be emo because it's cool or something.
I remember what the parentheses is now, because he's like they're going to the Rumble and he's talking about how like they're all that, but then he gets angry that he's like, because we're proud, but he's like, but why should we be proud about this? Why should we be proud that our hair is greasy? And why should we be proud that we're poor and that we're limited? And why should we be proud that we're stuck in a shitty situation? And then he goes right back to talking about somersaults and shit.
Yeah, but I mean, the boys also do really reflect through meeting Cherry that she's like, hey, everybody has their problems. We just have different problems.
That's the one. So when I do my reading journal, I collect quotes from books as I read, and the quote that stood out to me from The Outsiders was, things were rough all over, but it was better that way. That way you could tell the other guy was human too. Yeah. And I feel like that really exemplifies the main theme of this, where like it's called The Outsiders, but everyone's really in the same boat. Everyone's kind of an outsider in their own way.
Yeah, definitely. The title was very fitting for the novel. It's a great title for the book.
I agree with the theme and everything. I think Bob was a terrible example, and that they should have had a different, because they're like Bob, the guy who died, he was a really great guy and stuff. His parents just weren't firm enough with him. And I'm like, oh no, spoiled baby isn't given enough structure, so he goes around jumping innocent boys. Like, I'm sorry, my heart I could not. I was like, so
you had no sympathy for Bob who got murdered.
Rip Bob.
Yeah, I felt really bad for Bob. I was like, what the hell?
After I got his backstory, I was like, I stopped feeling bad for him, because like after I got his backstory, he's basically this 17-year-old kid who's like destructive, not even necessarily self-destructive. He's just destructive because he's like desperately wanting structure and everything. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's a thing. That's very solid and stuff. But because of this, he leads a gang of friends and they corner this kid who's just walking home, and he looks like Johnny looks younger than he is, right? And he he's the roughest. And they beat him up so bad that he's so traumatized that he carries a switchblade and then ends up murdering somebody because like of that trauma and trying to keep it from repeating and everything. And I'm like, and the justification for, or the explanation for this is just that like he's a bad guy when he gets drunk, and when he gets drunk he makes bad decisions. And I'm like, no, I'm not gonna feel bad for that. I don't care if he's like,
I don't know. I think it's the Socias. It's a weird name. Their group. It's Greasers is much easier to say.
Mhm.
That they're just, you know, the different side of the coin. You know, they also have a gang culture, even though it's.
I agree with everything. I just think Bob is a terrible example. I don't think he deserved to die. I want that to be clear. I don't think he deserved to die. I just, also, if you want me to feel bad about one of them, that was not the one.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of any other themes or
like,
symbols or motifs.
Because after hearing Bob's backstory, for me, it discolored some of the interactions and undermined the message a little bit, because the message that it was trying to get across was that like everybody has problems, and essentially everyone's problems are kind of like balanced a little bit. Well, not fair, but balanced. And I'm like, but it's not, because Bob went out and made his own problems, and the Greasers, they don't get to pick their problem. Like they're not going out of their way. I mean, like Dally is, but like Johnny and Ponyboy and Soda Pop and Dairy, none of them are going out of their way to cause trouble.
Yeah, but I'm wondering if we just didn't see that because we were through Boy's point of view. That some Greasers were troublemakers, probably. And also the aggressors in some situations. But Ponyboy, being the little youngest, probably just was never included in any of that.
No, like the book kind of like tells us, like Dally definitely does, 2-Bit and all of that. And there's other groups of Greasers and stuff, and they do things. I'm just like, because we are in Ponyboy's perspective, and like Bob is our primary example, he's a terrible example. Because it like, that's all I would say. Like Sherry talks about how, you know, her life is hard and stuff, but we're not really told how or why. We just have to take her word for it. And Randy was a great example. I think Randy was a really good example of it being rough on the other side and stuff. I just, for me personally, Bob was a terrible example to get my empathy. Oh no, his parents love him too much. Whatever will he do?
Oh my gosh. Oh, Bob. What theme was I thinking about? I was thinking about like what's the word? Redemption? Is that what I want to say? I feel like especially Johnny, you know, he kind of went from like, oh crap, I'm a murderer on the run, to being like, no, okay, that was self-defense. I'm saving kids. I'm, you know, I don't know. I felt like there was some sort of a redemption theme in the book.
I feel like it was a perception redemption, and that was like kind of part of the theme that she was getting at there. Because if Johnny had been caught before he saved the kids, the case may not have gone as in his favor. But
that's also how they saw themselves, though, didn't they? Because it really seemed like they felt like, oh, we're guilty murderers.
That's why I said a perception redemption.
Oh, I thought you meant a perception from the public, not from like an inner perception.
Yes, from both, I guess.
Okay.
My bad.
You definitely get both sides of the coin.
Yeah.
I don't know. That was just something I picked up on in the theme. Like, okay, it really turned around for them. Like the fact that they decided to like, okay, let's turn ourselves in. Like when I thought like, okay, we're going on the run. They're dyeing their hair. And then it's like, okay, no, we're gonna turn ourselves in. Oh,
There
okay.
for no reason.
Yeah, so it did seem like there was some sort of theme there with like doing the right thing, just for the sake of doing the right thing.
Poor Dally at that part. He was so stressed about Johnny going to jail because he just didn't want Johnny to turn out like him.
Yeah.
Which also says a lot
Right,
about how
Dally.
Dally perceives himself, I think.
But Dally was also very proud of the fact that of his rap sheet.
So he says.
Yeah, it seemed like he had a complex relationship there with that.
That's I feel like that's encompassed in the theme of like why should we be proud of this? Why is this the only thing we have to be proud of? So it's one of those things like where if you have nothing, then you learn to be happy with what you have or you fall.
Yeah. Kind of like any attention is good attention. Okay, negative reputation. It's a reputation at least.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like Bob and Dally were in a way, they were two sides of a coin. And I don't, as an adult, have a whole lot of sympathy for Dally. As a child, I did, but
I like Dally. I like Dally as a character.
also I want it clear that my feelings here are purely because they are fictional characters.
Oh, of course.
If they were real teenagers, I would have completely different opinions. I am talking purely from a fictional perspective.
Yeah.
Unless we have any other themes or motifs, I'd say that closing thoughts.
I am part of the Tank Top Nation. That's part of my clothing thoughts. Also, thin, baggy layers for summer are good.
I'm glad that I read this. I'm still a little bit sad that I didn't read it as a kid because I feel like it would have been more impactful, but I'm glad to have finally gotten to it. And I want to check out the movie because I've heard that the movie is really good. And I know Essie Hinton herself is like very much a fan of the movie. Like she was part of the production and everything. So
It has an all-star cast. So like it was like Patrick Schwarzenegger.
Ralph Macchio.
Not Patrick Schwarzenegger, Patrick Swayze. Wrong Patrick.
I knew he
Isn't Tom Cruise in this? There's like a bunch of famous actors. Is Emilio Estevez in this? Yeah, I think he is. He's too big. Rob Lowe. Yeah, there's a few famous faces in the movie, so I would like to see it as well. I agree with your closing thoughts. Why can't I say closing? That I'm really glad to have read it. Especially it's like something when you buy the book, you have it on the shelf, you have the intentions, and then to do it. Just like I said, like with a classic, I feel like I drag my feet a lot. So maybe we should do more classic-y type books.
The Train Summer Reading Program.
Yeah. Like you mentioned, Lord of the Flies, that's like right up the alley. So. Oh, Sam, you don't like Lord of the Flies?
I don't like bleak books, let alone bleak books that pit children against each other. And as I will read anything for the nostalgia train. I read Looking for Alaska, which I avoided because it was sad.
I skipped on that one. I was like, that one's not for me.
Generally, I will
Ooh.
read any book if at least one other person is like, "Hey, I've read this or I like this," and it's like, "You should read it so we can talk about it." I'll be like, "Bet, let's go." I don't promise you'll like all my thoughts, but we can talk about it.
But I also have the opposite, you know, like when a book is like really bad or really like you also want to read it. Like I feel like some of the Nostalgia Train books we read are also that really like what's the word? I don't know, soapy or cringy type of like YA that's like it was popular, but also yeah. We've had a few of those.
Well, I myself don't prescribe to cringe because cringe has to do with the emotion of embarrassment, and it's just not an emotion that I feel. So I don't 100% empathize with it ever. I felt like the Raven Boys was good. Like you and I had a discussion during that one that we definitely both felt like the Raven Boys looked like it was gonna.
Yeah, I feel like the name a little bit.
Which
the
I
title
was
does.
also like, that's so my taste anyway.
I don't. I thought the Raven Boys is actually a well-written book, but there's some books, YA books, that are really just trashy.
No,
So.
I was saying that like, you know, during the stream we discussed that we thought that's why people didn't read it.
Yeah, because we did think that like, okay, maybe they thought it was just like a trashy, these schoolboys, and really it's like witches and fault lines and like.
Just didn't have access to it. It's not my fault.
Sorry,
Yeah.
look,
I have a library card now.
Old Welsh mythology. It's such a cool book.
part of the reason we keep bringing it up, I promise, is because like the relationship dynamics in this one are so like similar and reminiscent to the Raven Boys. At least that's why I keep thinking of it.
Yeah, the three brothers. It really, I kept thinking of the brothers and the Raven Boys because they were also like orphan brothers who were a little bit bad boys, and the youngest brother was a good boy. So.
Oh yeah, but I'm really glad that I reread it, especially since, like I said, whenever the discussion of YA and darker themes comes up, I reference it, and I wanted to reread it at some point just so I could more cementingly reference it, or like I knew it was a good example, but I wanted to be able to cite reasons it was a good example. So that's part of the reason that I'm very glad to reread it. And also, the parts that I hated as a child, as an adult, are not quite as emotionally wrecking for me anymore. So I could enjoy it on a new level now.
Yeah, I definitely think it was well done, like for its audience. I don't know if it was written for a teen audience, but it definitely works as a YA book. So
yeah, she wrote it for herself and her fellow teenagers.
Perfect.
So also I first read it when I was 10 or 11, so there was a lot that, you know, growing up, bouncing from being essentially, sometimes we were middle class, with other times when my dad got laid off and stuff, we were straddling poverty. So I could empathize to a level, but then like after exiting my teen years and all the stuff that like my cousin went through and everything, I empathize on much deeper levels with a lot of the themes in this book. So I think that is a really good example of how like it's worth it to revisit books from our childhoods with the added adult experience.
Definitely. Yeah, it was a good pick. I think we have a pick for next month. I think it's Simon versus the Homo sapiens agenda, if I'm not wrong.
It is.
I'm excited.
With Nina, so we probably have to send Nina a little nudge at some point. Reminder.
Don't worry, I'll pop up in the Discord at some point. Like, hello.
Has anybody read that one? So I know what emoji to assign it.
I've read it like 4 times.
It has like letters or like text. Like maybe is there an emoji that's like
a speech bubble?
A speech bubble. Yeah, I've seen the movie, but I've never read it. So
I saw the movie in theaters. That's how much I was so into it.
I'm actually really looking forward to read it just because I
don't own
Yeah.
it anymore. I did unhaul my copy a couple of years ago because I'm like, I'm in my 20s. Someone else can get much more out of this, so I put it in a little free library, but that's what library cards are for. I've already submitted my request.
Oh, speaking of library cards, the reason I had to have this version was actually my library has 2 versions of The Outsiders audiobook, and both of them have huge wait lists. I was like, what? This
Okay.
book is old, and there's 2 different like versions.
It's on YouTube.
So, yeah, so I was like, were people reading it for school? But I'm like, school year's like over, so like,
It's a
why?
platform, man.
I mean,
Why is it so-
there are several different Outsider audiobooks on YouTube.
Yeah, I know that there are. So I
I
was just surprised. Like, I didn't even think to put a hold in for it because I thought, oh, surely it'll be available. No.
Such a good thing.
So
I mean,
sometimes
it's
they
probably
surprise
cool
me.
in the summer reading program.
Maybe like that happened also last time with Ember and the Ashes. That also had a 10-week wait. I'm like, for a 10-year-old book has a 10-week wait. Okay. Some of these oldies are they're still hitting, I guess.
And that's what the book club is for.
Yeah, they're still
I know.
hitting. So.
The wind just attacked my house. I was like, the fuck is going on?
Take down the spoiler banner. Yeah, so then I think that's everything. Like I said, I don't know what else we're reading this year. I just know that I think Simon
so-
was for.
July is Simon versus the Homo sapiens. August is A Court of Thorns and Roses.
Oh shit!
I'm so sorry. I have to skip that.
I've read that earlier this year. I have so many thoughts, and it might surprise you all what my thoughts are.
I'll reread it. It was a quick read. I can reread that fast.
I remember I read A Court of Thorns and Roses immediately after I read The Fault in Our Stars when I was like 17 years old. And that week of time is cemented in my brain.
Controversially, I don't think A Court of Thorns and Roses is a bad book. There's actually only one thing. If she took out this one thing, I would actually enjoy the book a lot. But there's that one thing. That is a big one thing.
I
But
look forward to hearing what that thing is in August.
yes, my birthday month. I will get to a bitch about. Oh, I might have to request because I'm working the last week. But anyway, September is The Giver, which is picked by me. October is Lockwood and Co. And then we don't have a November, December pick yet.
I know Steve
Okay.
wanted to read something, but I don't think he put it on the list, so we can.
Oh yeah, he wanted Six of Crows. We should ask him if he still wants to do it in November or December.
My husband will be excited about that one.
It's a solid lineup.
It's so cute. Both my husband and my children get excited about things that I read for the Nostalgia Train book club because there's also things that they have read, and I love it. So this is part of why I will never leave you, Violet. My husband really enjoys Six of Crows, so he's also actually in the Nostalgia Train book club Discord server. He's just always busy with work.
Well, I myself have been very absent, not only from like the Discord server, but like from YouTube in general. So I'm just hanging on by a thread here, guys. Like I said, I started the book last night, so I was like, oh.
Honestly, me and a lot of the people that I interact with frequently, we've all just sort of been gone from the writing community for a bit because some of us had like announced it that we like when my older two started middle school, I was like, I have to step back because they're in a big transitional period, so I have to put momming first for until they're 18 probably. But but I know several other people who, because of life things, and I think part of it is this economy. Everybody's having to step back because we gotta do the pay the bills.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for me, it was like obviously I started my presence and everything on YouTube during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And there was nothing else going on, and I had no job and no life. And now it's like, wait a minute, now I have a job and I have a life, and And all of a sudden, yeah, it gets difficult. So,
I'm glad that through that though we still have things like the Storyteller's Hearth and the Nostalgia Train book club and your favorites, that those are still like going.
yeah, keep things going that people can jump out, jump back in, take their time. Yeah, anyways, thank you guys for reading, hanging out, discussing. It's been real as always. Do you have anything you want to promote or say in general?
I have a book clubbish thing. It's more akin to a podcast because most of chat doesn't actually read the books. They just like to sit there for the vibes, which we're totally fine with. But it's book talk with Sam and CB. Our next episode should be Sunday. We will be discussing Enchantment of Ravens because that is my pick for the month.
Ooh, yep, I know it.
I'm taking pity upon my poor co-host who is so tired of all of my horny adult romances. They're not that bad.
How do you pick the books? Do you just randomly pick what you're vibing with?
So, no, it's like the book talk was mildly, I wanted something kind of in between the Nostalgia Train and your favorites. So I pick a book that I really like, then she reads it, and then we discuss it. And then she picks a book that she really likes, and then we read it and discuss it. That way there's always at least one person who is hyped about the book and like being positive and stuff. And then it's just a book discussion.
Okay, cool.
We're not there to review or anything, just to talk about books that we like.
I think it's always good to encourage reading and get people to read books you like. So
We have like, I want to say this will be, hold on, this will be episode 13. Oh, this will be episode. Yes, this will be episode 13. Sorry, the chart fucked me up because episode 12 was on June 13th. So I was like, wait. But yeah, so this will be episode 13. So if you want, you can go back and watch some of our last 13. I have a playlist of it up. We've discussed some Dark Hunter. We've gone through all of Scumville and Self-Saving System. We went through the Supernatural Singles trilogy. We read book 1 of A False Prince, and we've started Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation. So
I don't think I have anything to promote. Watch my videos. Come hang out when I stream. That's about it.
cool. Okay, where's the button? Okay, bye guys. Thanks again.